Let's go, good, roll. Are you ready? You ready? Okay, so we're back, good evening, we're back, back into regular session for the, Monday, February 24th, 2014, regular meeting of Sewer Authority Midcoastside. We're going on to item number 3, consent agenda. A, approved minutes of January 27th, 2014, SAM board meeting, February 7th, 2014 special meeting, and February 10th, 2014 special meeting. B, receive and file managers' monthly reports for January 2014, including A, monthly flow report, B, financial statements, C, monthly NPDES report, D, collection system data, and finally C, approve disbursements for February 2014. Board members?
I didn't mark it on my agenda. I thought I had something I wanted to discuss, but
Anybody else?
maybe not.
Just a comment that I'm happy that I mentioned the flows last month because the percentages went down by 2%. So I'm going to mention them again. Maybe they'll go down by 2 more percent.
Oh, great, great, great.
I was gonna make a suggestion on that. To me, it would be helpful if we maybe could see maybe the last 6 months or the previous year underneath. It kinda helps me put things in perspective. Because 1 month by itself can be a total.
You almost want to compare it to the same month a year ago, right?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
maybe if you have the previous year underneath it, that'd be really a big help.
That'd be possible?
In some coordinated but distinctive color so that we know which line is which.
Well, I just mean the numbers, just the percentages, that's all I wanna see.
Oh, I was
the
thinking of
numbers.
the chart.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, not the graph.
Yeah.
On
Anybody,
this,
any other board members?
yeah, on this page, is that really supposed to say 2014, I hope? Is this really the January 2014 report?
You have it?
Tell me we got the right report with the wrong title. So it is the right report. Okay.
Okay, January 14, okay. Any other items that anybody wants to pull from the consent agenda or any other discussion?
I move approval of the consent agenda as listed by the chair.
Second.
Okay, no more discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. No one opposed, it passes unanimously. Okay, item number 4, old business, receive information on general engineering services expenditures as compared to budget for the year 2012-13.
This item is on the agenda upon request by the board at the last meeting. Staff was requested to tally all of the expenditures by vendors greater than $30,000 in either of the past 2 years. In order to do this, we had to go back to Iron Mountain to retrieve our documents to get the details for the expenditures, and they were not able to provide the boxes. It took about 2 weeks.
Then maybe we're not able to provide their payment.
No, that's not it at all. The payments have already been made. The question is about whether or not the expenditures have been appropriated according to the budget.
No, I mean the payment to Iron Mountain if they can't produce the documents.
That's typical, right? A couple weeks.
Okay, so that'll be in the March board meeting.
Right.
If we get the data. Okay, item number.
Wait, no, this is important. I really want to know why they can't produce the documents. This is their job. This is
Yeah.
all they do.
There was a question about a number they couldn't find one of our boxes. They did find it.
I mean, this is literally all they do.
Are we going back
Shred,
just
they
12
do
months?
accountability for
We're going back 2
document
years.
destruction.
2
We do
years.
all sorts of things.
Is there a point where we have all this electronically?
We have, how much
We
do we
have
have
them
here?
stored offsite at Iron Mountain.
We have 1 year here?
Yeah.
But we'll have it for the next meeting.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
we have
Yes,
all
they do
boxes
find the
now.
box.
Okay. All right, are you Leonard? Okay.
All right.
All right, item number 4, old business. B, receive update on capital replacement planning activities.
So this item is in here to continue the discussion, or to continue the update on what we're doing at the manager's level related to capitalized replacement projects. So there's a flow chart in here, but this flow chart we discussed in great depth at the managers meeting, and there is not agreement that this is the way we wanna go, so we're still under further discussion. There's, right now, there's a question about how much planning we need to do, whether we can just move forward with projects. And so, until that's resolved, this flow chart is just one vision of how we might want to do it. But there's some feeling that we can just go ahead and start fixing things instead of stepping back and looking at the overall plan, that we know enough about what we need to do to just move forward. So if that's the case, if that's what the managers decide, then we'll bring a different recommendation forward to the board. So this is premature at this point.
I have a question on one of the decision diamonds. It says, can we keep, oh, wait a minute, I'm wrong one. Will Sam allow facility upsize? What does that refer to and what does that mean?
Well, so right now, the regulations have changed, and we need to accommodate a specific design storm, and we need to have firm capacity, meaning be able to do it with one pump out of service, so with one less pump than we have in our existing stations. And the question, which I don't know, because we didn't look at the stations in this way back in 1998, is can we accommodate the new regulations given what we know of flows, which probably have decreased since 1998. But can we accommodate these new requirements within our existing footprint and using our existing facilities? And so my feeling was, before we start spending a lot of money rehabilitating our old equipment, let's make sure we're doing it to the right picture. Let's develop kind of the blueprint and then build to that blueprint, instead of replacing everything in kind, assuming that in kind is the blueprint. So that's the question is, and I don't know, these are just kind of the what if questions.
Well, let me clarify why I'm asking, because that's on the no leg of the decision diamond, can we keep existing FM and structure?
Right.
And so the implication I took from going from one decision diamond to the next was the implication of potentially increasing the capacity of the force main, and that's just not gonna happen.
Right.
I mean, literally, it is not gonna happen, it'll get tied up with the Coastal Commission for a decade.
Right. So that's where we go on the no leg. So if it's not gonna happen, then we need to make sure storage is sufficient, and if storage isn't sufficient, are we willing to build more storage, or can we? Maybe we can't physically do that, and if we can, we'll do that or not, or plan it. It might be, 20 years out. But if we can't, then what do we do? I mean, it's the whole string of what ifs to form the full blueprint for the system. And then when we go in and we decide, we have to replace a force main, we have to replace the pump, we have to upgrade part of the pump station, we can say, okay, well, let's look at the blueprint. So is there anything different that we need to do to fit into it? Yes, let's do it now. If there's not, let's replace it as is.
So I have a question about, you referenced the changes in regulations. I'm unfamiliar with regulations being changed in a way that could materially alter to the kind of capital intensity that you're talking about an existing in-place operation. I've seen changes in regulations have to do with what you do when you go forward with big capital projects. But I'm not familiar with somebody coming along and saying that this system, which is operating to the degree it's operating, is somehow under the gun to go spend millions of dollars to build to what would be today's standards, when we've actually got operational excellence that demonstrates its capabilities. Changes in regulations are not going to wind up putting us under a multi-million-dollar gun. I'm having a hard time understanding that.
Well, the two changes that could apply and maybe could not, but what I've seen apply anywhere where there's any kind of spill and associated action is a revisiting of the design storm. So pre-2005, agencies either didn't have a design storm, they designed to measured flows, historical measured flows.
We did, actually, and we have, and
Right.
this is not new.
I'd like to hear the answer.
Okay, but this is,
I'd still like to hear the
Or they
answer.
it
might
needs to
have
be in the
designed-
context of this agency.
Right, or they might have designed to a 5-year 6-hour design storm or a 10-year 6-hour design storm. I think our design storm might have been a 5-year or a 10-year 6-hour.
You're not sure? So I don't like throwing around this talk
No,
about
well, what
many
was it?
millions of dollars.
It was a 10-year 6-hour. So what the regional board now is requiring of agencies that have to take action is a 10-year 24-hour storm. What the 10-year 24-hour storm does, it actually, the peak doesn't change.
We're not designing a new plant though, and that's what these regulations are all about.
I'm sorry, Scott.
No, but this
I don't
is my.
understand what you-
Rick,
I
Well,
don't
hold on, hold on a
understand.
minute.
I don't
Wait,
get-
wait,
I didn't hear a
wait.
whole answer.
This is my
Order,
question.
order, everybody. Vivian, did you answer Scott's
Well,
question?
so the 10-year storm doesn't change the peak, but what it does is it changes the volume of water that's moved through the system. And what happens to the system is it backs up and backs up and backs up, and so the volume ends up overflowing
Okay,
somewhere.
but this isn't my question at all.
Okay,
I understand how that works.
right.
And I've said and I will repeat, 5-year, 10-year, 6-hour, 12-hour, 24-hour design storms, we get that. We're not new to this. When you're talking about the changes in regulations and start giving us flowcharts like this, the implications of a flowchart like this are tens of millions of dollars if followed down certain paths. We aren't just now getting into this business. We aren't just now thinking about what kind of system we want to build. We have a system.
Correct.
And the kind of thing that we're looking at and have looked at every single year that I've been on this board is every year we reevaluate the CIP. We identify every capital project that we can reasonably figure we might need, always with some room for the thing that happens that we fail to anticipate. And then we priority sort those, and we work our way down that list until we have spent as much money as we can manage to put into that budget every year. When I'm looking at this, and I'm hearing about new regulations and we may have to do big things, I'm sorry, the regulations should not be used as a whip to cause us to spend $10 or $20 million.
And that's not the intention. So what this is intended to convey is that we have to spend millions of dollars in our IPS, just because the IPS is, the whole thing is beyond its useful life. So over the next 10 years, we're gonna have to do it anyway. We're gonna have to repair our pumps, we're gonna have to replace our electrical, we're gonna have to replace our generators, we're gonna have to do those things. So if we're going to do those things, if we know that these regulations are out there and if anything should happen to us, the regional board will come and hold us to a different standard. If it doesn't cost us that much to meet these within what we have, why don't we do it? Instead of putting in what we have and then later on having to change it out for more money.
I'm not opposed to the holistic approach, but again, just like with the regulations have changed, therefore, I'm hearing our IPS has failed and must be replaced. And that's a rather bold pronouncement, one which I don't believe has been supported through any reasonable presentation to this board in any of the time I've been here. I know of sections that need rework or replacement. I know of pump infrastructure and its age and the need for improvements and or replacements. But the wholesale IPS needs to be replaced because it's outlived its useful life. That's a really bold pronouncement, and it's not supported by anything that we've actually seen placed before this board. And so if we're going to talk about planning for capital, I'm fine talking in theory about holistic, but I'm not fine talking about we got to chuck the whole thing and go spend a lot of money. But that's cart before the horse. We have a capital improvement program. I brought something from a few years back where it's exactly what I described, where we've got, here are the projects that we know we need to do because things are wearing out and things are broken and there's some new technology that would let us do something better, sorted in priority. And you could see the line, the demarcation line at which we ran out of money to do all the rest of it, so that moved into the CIP for the next year. There should not be big giant surprises to us this year in the CIP. All of these things are things that have been looked at every single year, and in the past year we've had more participation than ever from the general managers or the public works director on trying to organize and make sure that what we've got in the CIP is actually relevant to the operation and continuation of the agency. I don't think we're looking at some major inflection point here in the agency. We're looking at what happens every single year.
I have the funny feeling, I mean, from listening to the work that Steve did and presented to us with, and it seemed to me, I could be wrong, that his CIP layout was something somewhat new. I don't know, I'd been here before. And then when Vivian came on board and we did the tour, you know, with my own two eyes, I looked at some of the generators, some of the motors, some of the pumps, and some of the comments Tony made about the difficulty with getting parts and so forth. It just seemed very clear to me, Sam needs to spend quite a bit of money on infrastructure going forward. So I think, hang on, Scott, so what I think our goal here is to determine, like you just said, the right priorities. I don't think nobody's pulling an emergency thing here that, you know, the sky's falling, but I do think it's important that we end up spending our money as wisely as possible, as Vivian first talked about, from a risk standpoint. So what has the most potential to fail, cause us the biggest fine and spill, etc. So I'm very confident that with her input, possibly outside input, we need to really have a really solid CIP that begins to move our infrastructure in a replacement fashion to the level we can afford.
Well, I would agree with that.
Okay.
And what we know over the past couple of years, what's caused us to have leaks and failures in the system, we've had lines that we have addressed by sleeving and the cured in place liner, and air vac valves that have corroded to the point of being useless, and they've needed to be replaced. A year ago, we gave Sam the task of finishing out the replacement of the air vac valves, right? So I'm not sure I want to be looking at this big giant holistic picture when what we've got really is something more along the line of a list of things that we know we need to do, and then it should be a matter of prioritizing those things.
Okay, excuse me, Leonard? And then we have a public comment from the audience in a few
My
minutes.
recollection is that SRT did give us a report after one of the northern end IPS problems, you know, where it springs these little leaks unpredictably. And what I think I remember from the SRT report was a recommendation on replacing some segments, but examining the whole system because she believed that the problem was more widespread than we realized.
And we also had some work teed up to go look at, once we finished the lining work we did last summer, to go look at segments further downstream. I don't know where we are on that.
Right.
Okay, let's take a comment from the public. Catherine, you've received a little slip. Want to come up here and make a comment, please?
Thank you. Thank you, Catherine Slater Carter, Montero. I was at a meeting some months ago when Steve was his last or second to last meeting, and there was some discussion about hiring, I don't know, a low-level guy to help dig ditches and clean pipes and so on, and it was decided that maybe that should be put off until we had the new general manager in place. We're talking about millions and millions of dollars worth of repairs or replacements, and perhaps this is something that our engineers and our new general manager should be working on. Some years ago, just after the expansion of the plant, one of the, and I've forgotten the name, I know Leonard knows it, one of the engineers said we had to replace the entire IPS.
Like
Whoever it was, Carollo or somebody. And it was going to be equivalent in cost almost to the replacement and the expansion of the plant. And we had peer review done, and they came in with some very, very cost-effective fixes. And we've been working from that peer review concept since then. And so it seems to me that one of the problems with this is it doesn't anticipate what Leonard brought up, and that is the permit problems and the costs of those. And the other is, I'm confused because I see a new wet weather storage project and so I realize this is just from a 50,000 foot level, but, some of these things I think should be considered, but with the new general manager and with our engineer and probably with peer review. We're all in agencies where we need to conserve our funds. And I know Half Moon Bay and Montara and Granada had important work to get done, and spending it all on something like this is perhaps not a good plan. But again, I go back to where we couldn't hire a basic entry-level guy to help keep the pipes clean. We've just been very lucky that we've had a very dry winter. In some regards, we've been lucky. In other regards, we're not so lucky. Anyway, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Jim?
Rick,
Yeah.
or
So-
Rick or Alan?
Thank you. I have a couple of comments. One is I think it's very fortunate that we have an interim GM with so much expertise available to us. So I appreciate that. And I understand that in the light that this was presented is that this is not doctrine, this is working and not validated with the agency managers. And so I take it with that grain of salt. And I also understand that it takes a comprehensive view of a potential approach. So it's all sort of caveated. So I'm not worried about this. Actually, I think the description of looking at our systems holistically and at our CIP from that factors in risk considerations, which I believe the previous CIP or current CIP does not, and that concerns me. So I'm open.
Could you repeat that phrase, Rick?
Yeah. So my understanding is the
Understand that.
CIP that was developed does not factor in risk considerations.
Oh, that's good.
And so that's of concern to me, and so I would want to understand, and I will want to understand, that would those priorities change, if we look at it from a risk perspective. And in looking at this flow chart, and even though it's preliminary, not adopted, not embraced, pretty logical, right? So taking a holistic view of the system, I think I would want the interim GM and the agency managers to continue their work and see what they come back with. I'm not buying off on spending millions of dollars. I like the holistic view. I like modeling the system. I think it's smart, and making thoughtful decisions with our eyes open going forward, so we know the impact. And I think bringing risk and the big picture into that discussion is essential.
Okay, I have a question. I have a question for Vivian. Vivian, so I want to ask you, how long have we've seen a couple of these charts, and we've been talking about the CIP for a while. What time scale do you see, talking to the managers, to begin some kind of work, and how much has it cost us since the last priority was done? How much have we spent so far in money on these and how much more will we be spending in the future?
On this process?
On this process.
It's, the time has not been significant. When we met as managers, we did a walkthrough of the facilities, so that was a day.
Who all was at that walkthrough?
Or actually, no, it was the board that was at the walkthrough of the facilities. Did the managers come to the pump station facilities?
Yeah, the managers did a
They
walkthrough.
did
Who
the first time.
who all was there?
Alex, Clemens, Chuck, Tony, myself.
Okay, and then, go ahead, how much?
So we had that walkthrough,
Okay.
and we had the board member walk.
Did you say you were there?
Yeah, I was not at the first walkthrough, I was at the second walkthrough with the board members. So Tony was with the managers.
Okay, so you weren't there with Alex, Clemens, Chuck, and Tony.
Right,
Okay, because I misunderstood what you first said.
okay, yeah, and I forgot that I wasn't there, because I am old. I am old and I don't remember things clearly until I try to remember.
Go ahead, Vivian.
And so then I attended the second walkthrough, and that was with board members, and then there was a third walkthrough with some board members. And then we've had discussions at managers' meetings where we meet to discuss other things too, so we've discussed this with the managers' meetings maybe 3 times. And, I mean, other than that, you know, it's just the time to put some thought into this, you know, this might take an hour of thought. So it's not like thousands and thousands of dollars of analysis have gone into this, we're just trying to formulate a plan.
You had said that.
Wait, hold on, excuse me. How much longer do you think it might take, and what will be the future cost of this analysis?
So, so I don't know if we're gonna go this way, cause managers wanna think about it. And, they're gonna think about it, and provide some feedback to us next week, so we can, some of this would need to go into the budget. You know, as far as and if we were to move forward with this, the analysis of the system, it would depend on what we wanted them to do. So we would give them the scope. One of the managers wants it to be a $30,000 analysis. One of the managers doesn't want to have it at all. The other one wants to do whatever we need to do to get the full picture. So we have a range right now, and so that's what we're trying to figure out, is what do we really want out of this, if we want anything. We may not want anything. So, I mean, from 0 to 50 or 100, you know, depending on, I mean, you could go crazy if you wanted to, so, but from 0 to 50 really is what we're looking at.
Future costs.
Of cost to figure this all out, develop a blueprint. And then as far as future costs to repair the pump stations, you know, we need to look at that. So we discussed today that we really think Montera Force Main needs to get replaced. That pipe has failed numerous times from the pump station to Valamar,
How many linear feet?
2,400.
So we replaced a section of that last year, didn't we?
We replaced a small section that broke,
Another section
and then
recently.
this
So
year was
how much of
another
that do you
section.
figure that was?
Maybe almost 100 feet until.
And both times when we were in that pipe, we saw the same, there's basically scour along the invert and
Yeah.
pretty much the whole way. The pipe is, it's, you know, it needs to be repaired. So it's a priority,
You-
because we know the condition and we've had so many leaks there. So that alone, you know, could cost between 800,000, 900,000, depending on.
You're saying replacement, we've done some successful sleeving, is that out of the question for this?
It would depend, yeah, we'd have to look at the best
You're
option.
talking CIPP?
Yeah,
It would depend
I mean,
on,
that's not gonna be 800,000 for that length, right?
well, we spent for Granada, we spent significant amount putting in the CIPP also. Either
Yeah,
way, it's very
I remember
significant.
that, but I'm asking specifically about this.
So I'd have to look at the force main, I don't know
Okay, I'm not quick to jump to replacement when we have other techniques that,
Right.
that we have used successfully. We've used it here on Sewer Plant Road, we've used it in Granada.
right.
I think the Granada Force Main replacement was 1,700 feet, and my recollection is that cost us like 900,000 or
It
something.
was over $1 million.
But I'm also not convinced without televising this thing that we need to do the
I
entire
didn't hear a
pipe.
recommendation.
Hmm?
I didn't hear a recommendation, right? I mean,
Well,
Yeah, we
I'm
have
just
to
trying to
look.
get an idea here, and what I'm seeing is leading with the, you know, the statement in the staff report is replace, and so you know, look,
I do know
as we level
I
set.
do know the importance of the words replace versus repair.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, I
Given the
don't
bridge I'm
mean
dealing with,
replace.
so it
Oh,
is
well,
important.
Yeah, I don't-
I'm not going there.
I don't mean replace, Director Boyd, I mean rehabilitate, whatever it takes, and part of the design is to figure out what the most cost-effective way
Okay.
is to rehabilitate.
Well, I'm reading what you have in the staff
I-
report, so
I-
I mean, that's what I'm responding to.
I think we need to go pull the reports that SRT presented here, like, what was it, 2 years ago or something?
We had
And-
photographs and the whole bit.
we need to start by reviewing, I think SRT hired a specialist to analyze some stuff, didn't they?
Well, let me see what we got.
Their reports have recommended rehabilitation of these lines.
I mean, we already have a lot of information on what we think needs to be done, we just need to go retrieve it from
But,
previous presentations.
So I'm also wondering why the lines weren't rehabbed and why the work wasn't done that
Money.
was recommended by SRT at that point.
Money.
So expensive.
Any other
Yeah,
Any other comments?
No, the airbag valves are not that terribly expensive.
Yeah, I don't know why that was.
Alan?
Yeah, I have to admit, I'm a little confused right now. It seemed like prior to Steve's leaving, he had put together his vision of the CIP. Vivian came on board, her concern was looking at risk and where do we have the greatest potential for overflows and fines and so forth, which I'm fine with that. I guess what I'm interested in is, do we have a date where we're gonna have a final CIP based on all of this data and saying, okay, agencies, we've got, and I'll just throw numbers out, we've got $10 million worth of work to do. You need to make the decision of how much do you wanna bite off each year? Do you wanna raise your rates? Do you wanna keep things consistent, et cetera? And then what are the risks of each of those decisions? But I guess the thing I'm lacking is the document sitting in front of us saying, hey, Half Moon Bay, you guys have to chip in $4 million because of A, B, C, and we've ranked them by risk and so forth. You know, how do you want to handle this? What direction do you want to go? And then all of us have to make, I think, that assessment of, you know, where do we come down on this? Because if a year from now something terrible happens and they go back and we were like, oh, let's wait a couple years, you know, I don't think it's that bad. Well, that's kind of damning. On the other hand, if we've done the work, we've done what we can afford to do, I mean, what more can you do? So that's the thing, I'm curious where we're gonna get to that point where we can sit here and make that decision. And I'm agreeing with the comments. I mean, we're looking at having a new GM on here before long, but I don't wanna extend this out forever. I mean, I heard a comment just now, gee, we've made recommendations or had them made to us and we haven't done work. I don't wanna see that continue to happen. If there's something that's really in bad shape, whether it's a repair, replacement, let's move forward. That's what our job is here, is to make that high level decision. So I'm real curious what our timeline is.
Is that a question?
Is that a question?
Yeah.
Okay, Vivian?
So there are two different timelines, so we could, look at the high level and develop the blueprint, and then you would have that list by, if you budgeted that part of that, or started part of that now, or budgeted it for next year, you could have the list, you know, within 4 months or so, if you step back and did that. If you were just gonna replace what you know needs to be replaced or rehabilitated, today as is, and just took that list and spread it over time, you know, we could do it in two or 3 weeks, because we know what needs to be done. The question is, if we develop the list in 2 or 3 weeks, is that the real list? Or are we gonna find out later that, oh, we need to adjust the list because we didn't realize such and such? So you can either develop a quick list, or do a little bit of big picture and develop the list.
Through the.
Mhm.
Right.
So when you say develop big picture, are you referring to doing a flow study?
To look at flows and to look at the overall picture of, can your facility accommodate flows, and do you think that you might have to do something different or not?
I see.
Yeah.
So my suggestion is, and I like the collaboration with the agency managers. My suggestion is that you continue that, and my suggestion to the board is that you continue to move forward to develop that consensus and come back to the board with that, through the lens of rehabilitation or replacement. And I think it may have just been a word choice in developing the staff report, but I don't want to be predictive as to what the outcomes will be. It may be rehabilitation, maybe replacement, maybe ignoring certain parts of the system. And I would like to just have Vivian continue and complete this process.
Okay, any other board thoughts? Leonard?
Yeah, two things. I just heard something that concerns me, which was something about flow modeling. Carrillo did that in, a long time ago.
But we did.
Before we came up with the plan for the wet weather detention facility in El Granada, Carollo, it seems to me, did model the whole system flow, and
We
so
had-
those documents have gotta be around here.
Well, they're online, and we did not one, but two major rounds of hydraulic modeling. Not just the modeling, but the actual gauging to support the model. So
And-
the system has been fully hydraulically modeled at two major points, and
Right, my point is that we don't need to do it again, we just need to
it's time to update it,
Fine.
because we've added the second set of retention
yeah.
facilities.
Now, the other thing that maybe some people don't know is the El Granada facility that was completed, last year, was specifically intended to be phase one with future phases to be done after we see how it handles the biggest storms. So Granada owns enough land there to greatly expand it without any complex design. It can be made 3 times the size it is now. 205,000 gallons. There's space right next to it to go up to 600,000. And you know, if 10 years from now some SAM board sees that that's still not sufficient, if there's a lot more acreage there, it'll be a little more complicated engineering, but it's really a pretty simple thing, and you know, we've provided for significant expansion if and when it's necessary.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Can I make a suggestion,
Yeah.
Jim? We have a budget meeting planned for what, March 17th, we're gonna discuss in a little while. It certainly seems to me like if there are any hot items that really need to get board approval to move forward with, especially in the upcoming budget, I think by that budget meeting or the March meeting at the latest, we need to hear what those are. And I'm more than happy to, if it takes a little extra time to get this thing really big pictured out and know what'll give us, again, the most bang for our buck going forward, I'm okay with that. I just don't wanna neglect if there's anything, if this, one of these pipes continues to fail and we should just get out there and take care of it. However, I don't wanna delay that. If those things need to get done, let's get those on the table as quickly as we can. I really want the input from the other managers so we know we're all on the same page. But I do like the fact, if it takes an extra couple of months to get that big picture, so we've got a good plan going forward. And I have to think, if the plan's done right, that plan shouldn't have to get redone every year.
That's right.
Maybe updated.
Well, that's what I'm getting at. This has been something, if you look at, this is from 04, 05, or maybe 05, 06. If you look at what's on here, it's gonna look very familiar in terms of the kind of stuff. It's different because these things got done, and now we're moving on to the next ones. This should be, you know, marginal difference, maybe a little reprioritization based on developing, you know, recent developments. It took me a couple minutes to find the documents from 2011 and 2012 in January, February of those years, where we dealt with the Valimar line. And you know, in 2011 we see everything clamped, and in 2012 we said, screw it, we're going to go in and replace some pipe. I mean, none of this is news. I would like to see the things that we authorized last year actually get done. The finishing out the air vac valves and finishing the examination of downstream from what we worked on in Granada. Those kind of things. Those aren't new. Those are holding up and not getting done.
But is that the most important thing to do, is my question.
Well, the air vac
yeah.
valves, yes.
Well, that is an example, but in the grand scheme of things,
Yeah,
of that
absolutely.
list, is that the right list? And I have to tell you, my sense is, I don't have high confidence in the list, because I know that the risk factors and reliability concerns were not taken into account in developing it, so I
But that's not the case for the air vac valves.
So that part,
No, I mean, it's not
that
only, maybe in 2010, we didn't evaluate the risk well. In 2011, we started, and in 2012, we went even further and made some very strict recommendations based on not only our experience with having to do emergency repairs and file the reports with the regulators about the spills, But examination of the air vac valves, pictures, our staff and crew out there taking a look at these things in the field, our engineer looking at it.
Right,
and
that's
going,
the airbag valves, but that's not a comprehensive, that's one thing.
it's not comprehensive, it's tactical.
Can I answer
And-
a couple things?
Yeah,
Go
it's-
ahead,
it's-
Vivian.
First, Scott, and then I want to address Alan. So, we are moving forward on the air vac valves. So SRT completed a report. We asked them to provide an estimate for design. They felt that they needed to have flow science to do more evaluation of surge to really understand what needed to be sized. They got an estimate from flow science. It was $15,000 or 17, I don't remember. It was high. It was
That's
above
for design?
for their surge study. It was above the threshold where I can authorize work. It's not an emergency project. I have to get 2 proposals. So we have to go through that process, but we haven't stopped that process. We've been continuing on that process.
But this was over a year ago that we,
We just got the report within the last number of months. Wasn't, I don't think it was over a year ago.
I'll find out.
Yeah.
I'd like to know when you got that report, because
Last fall. Yeah.
this is work that, I'm sitting here reading the February 2012 report where things got really serious with that line, and that's where we started to take a good hard look at the air vac valves. I appreciate we want to get the design right, but it's taken an awful long time. It's 2014. And I know this board gave authorization a year ago to move ahead with this stuff. If you've got something that where the money, you need to ask for a little more money, I expect to see that in front of the board. I don't want to hear that it's taken a long time.
Well, yeah, it's not that asking for money, we have a policy that we need to adhere to.
That makes
It's our
sense.
purchasing policy, and we have to adhere to it based on what we've heard.
Well, I
from
mean,
clients.
at a minimum, I want to hear how that kind of thing is going. I don't want to sit here and have to tease these questions
But
out.
on the study though, that's professional services, and I'm unclear what our policy is on that. I know what the state law is, and the state law says you don't have to bid out professional services if you think that one expert is really the one you need to use.
That can be a board direction, but the,
I don't know what our
but
policy
the
is.
policy for our staff and our general manager is, I think it's $5,000.
It's $5,000. So that's, and then to answer, you had a question about, now I don't remember.
Well, my comment was, I really think if there's anything that's really critical,
Correct,
we need to see that very quickly.
right.
And let's get it moving and see where it fits into the budget, because we're gonna be working on that very quickly.
Right,
And then I'm more than happy to take a little extra time, especially with the managers. Get the big picture thing laid out, clean, done, and then we all can budget for the next 5-10 years with the major projects that look at risk and age and so forth.
right. And so we are doing that. This discussion at the manager's level is concurrent with the budget discussion. We had a budget workshop today. We have a list from the 7-year CIP, which was primarily maintenance. So looked at those and pulled out what were really the safety issues and the high reliability issues, and put them in the O&M budget, took a look, and then also talked about Montero Force Main. Those are all, what are considered the highest risk. Because they don't fit within our existing funding, so there's a concern about rates. We can only do what we can do within our current rates. So the managers are gonna go back and look at their rates and the revenue and all that, and figure out what is it we can really fund, and let us know so we can pare that list down for this year. So, there was a discussion about that too. We do have the near-term needs. We probably have enough for 2 years in that list. That things we have to do while we're going through and figuring the rest of it out.
Can we see that list at either the 17th meeting or the 24th?
Yes, so that list will come to you the 17th. I can provide it earlier if you'd like, but I want to get the input from the managers first of what can be afforded, so we can get that list to a realistic.
And what's an expectation for the big picture plan? What timeline wise?
So so we can, I can give you an idea of what the big picture looks like, by the board workshop. And if you don't want to go through this, then that'll be it. That'll be the list. But if you'd like to do a little more analysis to make sure we're looking at. So let me ask, that's the big picture we won't have for the board workshop, a preliminary 5-year plan with costs based on what we know we can have for use. We can give you an idea of what you're looking at in dollars. That can be your plan moving forward if you don't wanna go forward with this. Or if you do want to, then this will take a little bit more time, a few more months.
When you say more time, how long?
A few months. So I have in here, July, depends on when you start, but July, what we wanna do is we wanna finish this quickly, because design for Montera needs to start quickly in order to try to get that constructed before the peak flood money.
Yeah, okay, so July is the timeline, and what are we talking about for cost?
To do this, it depends on what we say is the scope. It can be 30,000, it could be 50,000, it could be zero.
I think you need to put that in front of the board, and we have to make that decision.
And right now, there is not agreement that we should even move forward with this at any cost. So
From the
that's what
managers?
Right, so that's what we're
Okay.
discussing right now.
I would like to have the managers in concurrence.
Me too.
I'd at least like to know where they stand.
Yeah, yeah.
There's little question to me that our manager and our staff and our engineers should be taking a look at the CIP every year, no matter what the managers think or do. I like the idea that the managers can weigh in and evaluate, because each of them has substantial operational experience and has infrastructure of their own they're intimately familiar with. But I don't want to hold up on that. Sam has a job to do, but I love having them in as experts to weigh in. And certainly, you know, Jim and I stay in very close contact with ours and have a really good idea of what we believe our priorities are, and we want everybody else to do that as well.
How about if we said this, we're gonna get the short-term critical things at the March budget meeting. What if we said we would like to see in front of the board by, say, what, the end of April meeting? The manager's recommendations for the long term. If they wanna spend 0, 20, 30, 50, I wanna see that and know how we move forward. I don't wanna wait more and more months. I don't wanna wait till July. I want the managers to make a decision and come back to us with that. That seem reasonable?
Yes, okay, so, if there are any other comments? We don't need any action on this.
But board direction,
For
what we
board,
want.
board direction, Vivian, do you have that direction? Okay. If there's no objection, we'll go on to the next item.
Thank you, David.
4, old business. Item C, ratify agreement between IUOE Local 39 and SAM regarding over-certification of Local 39 members.
So this item, there is a signed agreement in place between the previous general manager and Local 39, and this is for pay for over-certification. So we were getting ready to implement this and realized that there had not been documentation of board action approving this. But we understand from talking to our labor negotiator, Mr. Rungus, that this item had been discussed and had received support. And so this is essentially just an administrative item now to ratify the agreement that had reportedly been discussed and approved at some point, but just not documented in minutes.
Okay, board members?
Leonard, is there some sort of review by management that the over-certification is, that any specific over-certification is providing value to the agency? Because, you know, as long as it does, then I think that, you know, the bump is fine, but what I'm thinking about is I don't want to see over-certifications just for the sake of getting more money if there isn't value to the agency. So, you know, I want assurance that each one on a case-by-case basis gets reviewed and evaluated. Yes, this is providing value to the agency.
Tony, do you have any comments?
We haven't approached it that way, but I'd say there's no question that there is value to the agency, just by virtue of the studying they have to do and the learning that goes along with being able to pass these tests. They're pretty comprehensive.
Okay, any other board members? Rick?
I'm-
Wait.
And more specifically to Tony, do you have situations where maybe you've got like a couple layers of employee and this person's certified at the higher level, and if this person at the lower level got that training, he would be quote over-certified, but are there situations where that person would have to step into a higher job if that person's sick or gone, or, because that would seem like a good over-certification if,
At this point, no.
okay.
Okay,
Do we
Alan?
have a dollar figure what this is gonna cost us yearly? Rough number?
I don't.
Our productive payroll's 400,000 budgeted, so 2.5% of that would be the absolute max if every single person were over certified.
So were we saying 40-some thousand a year?
400,000 is our productive.
But 2% of it, or what?
2.5%.
2.5, so what's 80? What?
Well, 1% would be 4,000.
Everybody sucks at
Eight
math.
thousand.
8,000.
Oh, 8,000.
Okay, anybody else? Scott? Rick?
No,
Okay, and do we have,
Terrible.
do we have a motion, or do you want?
I move that we ratify the attached agreement.
second.
Go to second. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Abstentions? Then it passes unanimously.
Mr. President, or
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, gotta get that one.
President.
Wow.
Given that it's just about 9:40, and I would move to table item 5A to date uncertain and continue with the rest of the agenda.
Anybody object to that?
I agree.
Really? Why?
Yeah. We don't have to do it.
Because it's
today.
not
Just do it
pressing
later. We still gotta go back in
time-wise.
closed session again.
We still have a lot on this agenda, and there's no time sensitivity to that item.
All right, so
Okay.
if nobody objects, then we'll go on to new business.
So we have this on the next board agenda, please?
April? No, March.
Okay, on the next board agenda then, please. Thank you, for 5A. 5B, authorize March 17th, 2014 as date for SAM Board Budget Workshop. Okay, so that date has been agreed to.
So moved.
What time?
7. Isn't it?
Second.
So it's 7 o'clock, is that what we talked about?
7 PM.
7 PM, okay.
Well, we had penciled in with 6,
That's, we talked about
but
6.
6 is really hard, if we can make it 7.
So 7? 7's fine with me.
7 PM.
Okay, 7 PM.
Someone please send out a calendar invitation for that? Please. That way if it changes, I can block it.
Okay, so do we need a second on that?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Scott seconded it.
I did.
Scott seconded. All those in
Aye.
favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously.
What is that?
Okay, 5, new business, 5C, discuss possible recycled water activities for SAM and provide direction to staff. Okay,
So this item is on the agenda upon request, I think it was either Director Harvey or Director Loman. So
Like
there
you to
is a
kick it
piece
off
of
the
paper in
wire.
front of you, and there are copies for the public here from our website of other documents that have been discussed, and,
No, that's just the,
yeah,
that's the agenda. It's only that one page.
the one that is right there. These are documents on our website that kind of provide a history of recycled water discussions at SAM. And it's just that one page. And they have dates on the left of when these items were discussed, so there's been regular discussion over the years, just for historical background.
What are the years on, I just see months. Oh, is that,
Yeah,
When it
it's month
says-
and
is that
year.
the,
When it says MAR 10, that's probably March 2010.
this is starting in
Yeah, so
81?
Well, I mean, really, it started in '02. And then we did just a whole pile of work on it from '02 up through, let's see, 2010.
You know what's not
And if you're
shown?
interested, I brought some of the materials I've collected over the years on this stuff. No, it is very interesting, and it's really important to understand that we've done quite a bit. I gotta say, I'm gonna have a comment on the article that was in Half Moon Bay Review. I'm a little disappointed by that article. It really left out really important context. Some of it was just flat wrong, and I'm really disappointed that as someone, I mean, many of us here, several of us here, were very highly involved, and for them not to reach out to the people who sat down with the golf course management and with the nursery management and with CCWD and attended conferences and put together a substantial and important workshop here in town involving people, experts from literally all over the country. It's just a shame that it left out so much and have such a pugilistic headline about whatever happened. Whatever happened? Well, anybody remember the recession? We went through a rather successful pilot program. It wasn't perfect, but that's part of why you do pilots. We served water to the golf courses, and we served water to nurserymen. We had some issues with the water they were getting. It had too much salt ion load. The agency was looking at could we find the sources of that and keep it from being part of the product by looking upstream to see if we were getting too much salt in
For treating it.
from point. Well, but we were looking for point sources, right? We could find point sources of salt. For example, if somebody doing fishery activities was putting salt water down the pipes, I mean, we'd want to stop it, and that could help solve a pretty big problem. If it's just everybody has too much salt in their diets, maybe we get the coastside on a lower salt, low sodium diet.
Or water softener.
But we went through the pilot. We identified some challenges to overcome. We examined a fair bit of the available technology. We had a very clear understanding of who the potential clients would be. A very carefully enumerated list. We met with a lot of the potential clients. We came to understand very clearly their needs, where those needs stemmed from. What golf course? If you look at what Bruce Russell has done down at the Ocean Colony golf courses, quite a number of things to try to offset not only the cost of the water that they put onto the greens and onto the fairways, but also to adjust the kind of planting that they do. He actually took it towards more of a Scottish model with more of it kind of in the wild because, frankly, it takes less water, and it's like Scotland where golfing is a supreme sport, and they were getting write-ups in Golf Magazine for being really, really progressive in bringing this very classic golfing style here to the coast. They were looking at everything they could do to reduce their water need, in both from their cost perspective, their risk management for making sure they would have water during the lean times, and also addressing concerns that CCWD had about potable water being allocated and used for watering golf courses when costs and supply and all that stuff was getting to be a real issue for them. It all kind of knit together. So we got all that figured. We got it figured out pretty well. We put together a really good grant proposal. We took it to Anna Eshu. I have a number of the letters from a variety of organizations that support it, everything from the Chamber to Committee for Green Foothills, almost every single elected body anywhere nearby. Not all of them, there was one holdout, but every other one, every environmental organization, surf rider, all sorts of folks. But that was in a year where only really 2 agencies in the Bay Area got any money at all. It wasn't a lot, and it was, of course, the big ones.
What year is this guy?
That was '08 or '09. And as you might remember after that, all attention turned towards, is the country going under? Are the banks failing? And the only funding available was for shovel-ready projects. And if you remember what came out of the administration on the shovel-ready projects, it was all above-ground projects. nothing was receiving funding that was underground. So
Not requiring shovels, ironically.
that's funny with all that, I didn't even put that together.
Just saying.
Wow, Rick,
I don't know if it's a conspiracy.
That's really good, so.
you're sharper than I thought. He is
But you know,
sharper.
we took a run at it, and I really appreciate Rick bringing this up, because enough time has passed, the economy has started to come back. We should talk about what our priorities are on this, and how we might want to proceed.
Okay, Rick?
Yeah, and the I put it on the agenda for a couple of reasons, not because of the article in the paper, but because we all know we need recycled water. We all know that we're in drought conditions. But there is, and I forgot the name of the agency, who is actually, as we speak, getting ready to provide large grants for recycled water projects. So I have another one, I'm through a group that's tied to Pacifica. They said they just got grants, and they're gonna tell me their people also. So what I would like to do is, I see no reason in just, quote, moving the project forward. I see the steps as a preliminary investigation of the current technologies to see if that's changed any from the membranes we were looking at before. Get some cost estimates as fast as we can. We know the size, we know the volumes. Why shouldn't we proceed with prices so we'll know how much to ask on grants? And then go forward with grant applications. I don't think, none of that should take much time at all. Everybody wants this, 90% of the people in Halfton Bay signed the petition, or whatever the voting thing.
Advisory thing on the
Advisory
ballot.
vote. So, I don't need this kind of pressure, from the papers. This is something we should be doing, and everybody knows we should be doing it.
Okay, let me make a comment next, and then Leonard, and then Rick. So, there's an article in the Half Moon Bay Review, we were talking about February 12th, what happened to recycled water, and it was written by Mark Nowak. And I just wanted to say that I had a meeting with Dave Dixon, and I showed him the article, and he apologized to me and the other board members of NWSD, and said that he was misquoted in the article, that he did not say these things, and he was misquoted.
In our review?
Pardon?
The Hampton Bay Review?
Really?
I can't believe that.
So Dave Dixon
Shocker.
would not object to me reporting that he claims he was misquoted in this article, and that he didn't say these things that he was quoted as saying. So I just want you to make that clear, because again, it's in the February 12th edition of the Half Moon Bay Review. So, with that, Leonard.
Everything that Director Lohman just said notwithstanding, there's one really big key part of this that he didn't mention, and that is that we, meaning this board, wanted to get going with the one, I don't know what we called it, pilot customer,
Two. Nursemans and Ocean
Two.
Colony.
but we were specifically talking about Ocean Colony because they have the pipeline that runs
That's
practically
true.
up to our fence.
Right.
And so all they would have to do is get a pipeline extension permitted and built to get the last, 100 or 200 feet over to the plant, and then we'd pour water in their pipe. And CCWD blocked it because they wanted to be the distributor, they wanted their markup, and he couldn't afford their markup. And so that needs to be resolved. I think that it's now resolvable because there's a fairly significant difference in who's on the CCWD board now. I suspect that it's a much more reasonable board, and we probably need to have some, I don't know, maybe a committee or whatever, but we need to get some discussions with CCWD and see if we can get past that log jam and get them to delegate to Sam for that one customer to let us be the distributor of water to the one customer so we can prove the viability of the concept and get it going. And then I seriously doubt if this board wants to be the general distributor and building purple pipes all over the place. I'm going to assume that this board will be perfectly happy to have CCOBD do that, but we need to be the distributor for that one initial customer where the pipeline is pretty much already in place.
Okay, before I go on to Rick Kowalczyk, let me comment that last Friday, the MWSD committee, cooperation committee with CCWD had a meeting with CCWD representatives and Dave Dixon. And we had a nice discussion, and we agreed that we would work together and look at this recycle project again. And so maybe we could have a meeting with all the groups, and Dave Dixon and Kim Coverdale and Steve, I can't think of his name, the other CCWD member. And then Bill Huber and I, we all agreed.
You're not talking about Steve Flynn, are you?
Steve Flynn at CCWD. We all agreed that we would look at this anew and be able, we should be able to come to an agreement and go forward. Okay, Rick Kowalczyk.
Yeah, first of all, Rick, thank you for bringing this up. And as at the right time, haven't been on the board, wasn't on the board when this was going on. And I like concepts, but I'm not, a lot of the discussion is very familiar with the project and the plans and the technology. Very unfamiliar with the project, the plans, and technology, but like the idea.
Mhm.
So, in part of our, whatever we decide to do, if we decide to, move forward, I think we need to get everybody on the bus, right? I'm at the bus stop. So,
So you've got something, this I think may have been one of the last things that we did as a board on looking at it. So it gives you kind of a sense of where things went when the economy went south. We just put things on the shelf for a bit. It's just been a ton of work. And you'll see different alternatives to the projects, different ways to go. You'll see timelines, cost estimates, what the current technology was at the time. We'd want to refresh some of that because the technology is moving very quickly right now.
Oh, and I'm sorry, I even need, I'm looking at the bus stop, I need the,
Well,
I'm walking to the bus stop and the bus is coming. I truly need the, this is the concept, this is why it's important, this is how it'll be used, like that sort of like foundations type stuff.
The place to get some of that, where I think it's written up fairly well, is in the proposal that we sent to NSU, because we had to provide that background to people who hadn't been in our board meetings, but
Oh, I read that.
there's a pretty good background there. But the fact of the matter is, we all know water's tight right now, and right now all of our discharge is out of pipe into the ocean. If there's a chance to put some of that water to better use, it accomplishes a number of goals, but two of the big ones are, one, it finds beneficial use for water better than simply dumping it.
Yeah, all I'm saying is catch me up to the process, I gotta get caught up.
And the second big one is, if we're ever able to get to where all the water is being disposed of in some other way than going out to the ocean, the outfall represents $20 to $40 million worth of replacement cost should it, heaven forbid, ever be destroyed. Big giant earthquake, dragging anchors over it, some other kind of cataclysm, or just because it wears out. It represents a really huge piece of capital investment that we've got. And while we do maintenance activities on it, it's not the kind of thing that's going to keep it from wearing out in the long run. So if we're able to find disposition for our water, especially beneficial use of our water, to help out the golf course, to help out nurserymen, or they've renamed, but or any of the other growers along 92, or if we can find a safe way to water sports fields. There's just a whole number of things. Sports fields don't have revenue. This is one reason golf courses and nurserymen were an idea. We wanted to have enough revenue to cover it, but we also had to be very careful not to soak them, because what they were looking was what they were paying CCWD, what they were looking at paying CCWD and trying to figure out what's a smart move to get off of that source and onto something else. And in doing that, freeing up that water for CCWD to redeploy around its region to better use than just spraying on fields.
Yeah,
So,
hold
again,
on,
my point is still the
No,
same,
hold
whatever
on.
we do, I gotta get caught up to the process.
Yeah, wait, hold on a minute, so you have a copy of this, Vivian?
That's all on the website, right?
SRT? It's the SRT's recycled water project status update, November 18th, 2009. All the work that was done, and part of the recommendation and the grant was to work with CCWD.
That should be in this
and
list.
the other
It's recycled water study here in
So
09.
it was, it was recommended that we do work with CCWD, there was never a doubt of that. So when you have a chance, you might look this up on the website.
Oh, no, I looked at it, but look, I'm not gonna look at a PowerPoint that's,
All right.
it's 40 sides of word walls, that I'm just not gonna absorb that, right? It doesn't catch me up to
I
the
really do
project, so.
think, we did two rounds of grant applications. I think in the second round,
It's not just the
the language
PowerPoint.
is pretty good and provides,
Do you mind if I-
if you haven't read through it, I'd hardly recommend it.
Okay,
Can I make a suggestion?
Alan.
Why don't we put together, and I'm a fresh person here in terms of, I've heard the stories in the paper, never understood why it never happened, but I clearly think that there's a good need there. I know some of them, I know Bruce Russell, I've worked with him. I would like to recommend we maybe put together a small committee to put this back together again and see the feasibility. And in just very broad terms, see if it looks workable, and then bring it back to the board with, whatever steps and timeline we need.
That sounds great. You and who else?
I definitely have a very strong interest in this. I've put so much
Okay.
time in. One of the things,
I
just
have a
in-
strong interest in not being on this committee.
okay.
I gotta do it on time.
One thing I would mention, just kind of the short and sweet of it was that what we were proposing was to find federal grants for this to the tune of somewhere in the neighborhood of $6 million. That would let us build what we'll call a package plant here on the facility and get it connected to the pumps on the other side of the creek. That's the kind of scope project that we know the user needs it. The user has a going business that could help with the ongoing operational costs of that. They own most of the distribution infrastructure to get it from the other side of the creek all the way down to where it would be used. They have storage facilities in terms of ponds down there, so they could do some balancing on our flow during the day might not be enough, but over time, they've got enough of a system, they know how to operate it, that this could be really interesting. So about $6 million, that's where we were in '09 for something that was very targeted, very clear need, very clear benefit.
Okay, so committee formed, direction given to the committee. Any
Wait,
other comments
who's
on
the
this?
committee?
Committee
Scott and
is
myself, do anybody else
Alan,
want to be on
Scott,
it? Rich,
and
you want to
Rick.
be on it?
Since Rick was on it before, I think he's a really good choice,
Okay,
and
so
since
those
Scott
three.
was on it before, he's a really good
Okay,
choice.
Jim?
And I wasn't, so I'm a really good
Oh,
choice.
And again, the intent I have is, first of all, to walk away from the blame game,
Yeah.
because
Oh, no.
that's not gonna,
No,
okay, you keep it.
Well, until the
There has to
next,
be accountability, Rick, come on.
Yeah.
but at least until the next issue of the application.
Well, I think there's one thing that we've got unanimity
Oh, my
on.
God, so-
I'm looking forward to this because it's been,
Yeah.
the economy just simply wasn't up to it. I mean, we're not gonna cough up $6 million of our own dollars on this, just out of the blue. When, we just finished the conversation about the CIP, $6 million on top of that, probably not realistic, but we do know that we've got going businesses in our community that employ a lot of people, that the vitality of the golf courses speaks to the vitality of the economy of the city of Half Moon Bay. The vitality of Half Moon Bay is of great consequence to us in Montera, Moss Beach, and Granada.
If you make it short, Leonard, because
Yeah.
we're going on to the next topic.
Is it 10 o'clock yet?
I just,
Oh, it is.
I wanna make sure that the newer SAM directors are aware that one of the principles that we agreed to that was just really solid back then was that any sewer ratepayer money that was used on this had to be recovered. So that after some reasonably small number of years, there was no net cost to the sewer ratepayers for doing recycled
Okay,
water.
thank you. Okay, let's go on to the next topic, which is,
Thank you, Rick, for
item
bringing this up.
six. Thank you, Rick. Interim manager's report, update on current activities, wastewater treatment plant activities, collection system activities, administration activities, interagency meetings, 2014-15 budget preparation update, and anticipated managers' items for March agenda. Vivian?
Yeah, I'll make this short. We spent most of our time developing the budget, been quite an effort, and I gotta applaud our staff for working very hard with Parsons to pull that together for the managers meeting. And so in there, I've talked about projects and talked about staffing and talked about cost. So that's really consumed most of our time in this past period. As far as interagency meetings, we did make a presentation to SEAC, the Coastside Emergency Action Committee, which is a large group of folks who discuss collaboration in times of a major crisis on the coast. And they were interested to know what our operations were and how we handled emergency response. And actually one thing that came out of it was there was a question about if we have a policy in place for how we would contribute to a major coastside emergency response. And we do have something that's quite old, so we dug that up after the meeting, and I think one of the things we want to do is update it to make it current.
Okay.
And then the other was a presentation to the San Mateo Special Districts group, where there was quite a bit of interest in recycled water.
I was there, and Catherine was there for that. Good job.
And I was there.
And you were there. And you were there. And you were the chair.
I ran the meeting.
You managed the meeting. I love that job.
Was Scott there?
Scott was there.
I was, no, but I was at this meeting.
I wasn't there.
All right. Anything, Vivian? Anything
That's all
else?
I've got.
Okay. Thank you.
I have a question that I guess would go on manager's report. At our last meeting, I requested that our technical services manager find out exactly what happened at CCWD with their office fire and report to us on what our exposure is. Did you get a chance to look into
Didn't talk
that?
to CCWD, but I did look into our exposure, and we back up both off-site and on-site.
Okay.
So,
But I mean, in terms of what the actual fire was, because they have some temporary building out in the parking lot there, their office is not even usable apparently.
It's water damage. or
Um,
something.
And
What I read
I
in the
didn't talk to
review
them,
was,
but like I said, I checked into what we do, just to be sure we were okay.
Well, that's in terms of backups, but in terms of whatever it is that triggered the fire, you know, I'd like to know, do we have an exposure to whatever actually ignited the fire there? And, you know, what's our risk of a similar incident happening here? I mean, it's really good that you have appropriate backups and can recover the computer systems, but you really don't want to lose the office either. And, you know, if the fire affected the operations area, that shuts down the plant. So, you know, I want to make sure that we're not at risk for an equivalent type of fire cause.
All right. So do attorney's report.
I have one question real quick.
Does it refer to the general manager's report?
Yes.
Okay.
How many tanks do we have out right now from Marines for rent? Is it just up at Montero?
No.
So I was just looking at the check, so,
We're running a pump, and,
we don't have any tanks out, right?
no tanks.
Okay, good. I saw this, I'm like, so this is about pumps and other, okay,
Running a trash pump.
great, perfect.
Okay, Jim Copeland, attorney's report.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Chairman. Two things. One, I just wanted to report to the board, because it's been a while, and that is the matter with Jack Foley over at CalPERS. Just to go back and refresh your memories here, we entered into they released us from that lawsuit. So Sam is purely a sideline spectator in that matter. But just to bring the board up to date, there has been testimony from SAM representatives, I believe Jeanette, and I think Scott was over there, testimony in the CalPERS process. So the process is, it is still going on, ongoing, the matter is alive, and Jack and his attorney have filed their argument to CalPERS, essentially saying there was a mutual mistake and that CalPERS needs to recognize that. So, like I say, we are on the sideline. I don't see exposure to us, but I just thought you ought to be brought up to date that a couple of your people here at SAM had been involved with testifying over there, which you guys knew before they.
Because Jack and we both signed an agreement.
Yes.
That would hold us harmless.
Right, right.
All right.
That's the first thing. The second thing is a follow-up from last meeting. Director Warren asked about, I was reporting on some of the recent Brown Act activities and Public Records Act requests, and you specifically asked me to bring you up to date on some of the really current stuff. And rather than go through this, I can talk about this for 30 minutes, but I'd rather just hand you what I printed up.
Great.
Which would save time. But basically, rather than reporting on some cases that are already 2 years old, 3 years old, there's stuff going on there right now, including down in San Jose, a judicial determination that the private emails, to the extent there was public discussion, is subject to the Public Records Act request. That case is on appeal, and I know you don't want to don't argue, I'm not here to defend it, I'm just reporting it to you. And I put this out in detail, so if you want it, I can give it to you.
Yeah.
And if any of the other board members want, you can look at it.
Okay, thanks, thank you.
So you can email that out to us?
Here, I'll give it here.
Oh,
Thank you, Jim.
if you could also email it, I'd appreciate that. Oh, all right.
We'll email it,
Yeah.
provide a copy to
Okay,
Susie.
okay. Let me I'll pass these around now, and then she's gonna email them.
Yeah, we'll email it.
Okay, thank you. Director's reports. Now,
It's been a pleasure. Rick, it's my report.
yeah, oh, you, no,
It's been a pleasure, and you're doing a great job as chair, by the way.
I
Thank
agree.
you.
I think
Yeah, Jim, you are. And I'm not gonna say you surprised me.
You said that.
No, you really are.
You've already said that.
I already said that, I wasn't gonna do it again. Good
Okay.
job.
Okay, Alan?
No, that was it.
Yeah, I just wanted to also thank Vivian for showing up at our special district chapter meeting a couple weeks ago to do our SAM report, so we got some advertising out there for SAM. Supervisor Tissier was also there, mostly talking about her transportation issues and background. Everybody liked Vivian's presentation. Good show.
Good job. Scott?
I have a whole pile of documents here about recycled water for anybody who just wants to see some fun reading.
On wheels.
Okay, public comment? Leonard, excuse me.
At the GSD meeting a few days ago, Director Clark asked something about why do we still not have working rain gauge at Portola?
Haven't been able to get one to communicate yet. We had the whole modem set up before and it worked, and the new stuff, we just haven't been able to get to work, so.
Okay,
We're
well.
looking actually for another, we looked into what MWSD does, and it turned out to be quite expensive, so, for us, so.
So you are working on it?
We are working on it.
Okay,
All right,
thanks.
Leonard, okay, thank you. Public comment, any public comment? If not, we're going to recess and go into closed session, general manager, public employee appointment after this. Thank you.
Scott?